After passing the Federal Highway Act in 1956, a quiet ribbon cutting in Kansas kicked off the largest public works project by the end of that year, with a goal to be finished by 1972. Federal would cover 90% of the cost, while state would chip in the other 10%. States would also be required to provide maintenance and patrol within sections in their borders. The Federal Shield was designed in August 1957 with the word Interstate on it alongside the number. For city markers, a 3-mile test road was built in Maryland where drivers drove past signs in 3 different colors. Out of hundreds of drivers racing past, 58% chose green, 27% blue, and 15% black, all choices with white lettering. These finalized designs we see today were then trademarked by the American Association of State Highway Officials. The Bureau of Public Roads and the AASHO came up with the standardization for safety regarding highway construction. With building the highways in the late 50s, they needed to make sure they were accommodating traffic needs in 1970 and beyond. Lanes at least 12 feet wide, shoulders 10, and bridges with at least 14-foot clearance. In 1959, underestimating the cost of this project, the gas tax was quietly raised per gallon from 3 to 4 cents. November 14, 1963, President Kennedy cut a blue ribbon at the Mason-Dixon line, completing I-95, connecting Maine to Florida. This was the only time a U.S. president was present to a section opening. He announced this as the grand partnership between the state and federal governments. Each quarter, the government would publish a status map in engineering periodicals, occasionally also in major magazines such as Time, to keep the public informed of the process. 2 forms of commercial exploded at almost every exit ramp during paving: McDonald's and Holiday Inns. Every business day, a new McDonald's would open and a Holiday Inn every 3. One form of commercialization being watched were billboards. Lady Bird, President Johnson's wife, fought hard to save the beauty of the scenic drive. Convincing her husband enough, he passed on October 22, 1965, the Federal Highway Beautification Act. Billboards were to be moved 600 feet from the highway in limited quantities. Johnson stated the purpose of the interstate is not just to get people from one place to another, its purpose is to enrich the journey. By 1970, family vacation trips increased in distance and volume. Because the highways were so popular, on October 30th, President Nixon signed a bill creating Amtrak to save the railroad, which would defer some traffic back to the railroad. Nebraska would go on to win the state race, completing their section of I-80 and thus completing all of their interstate in October of '74. On October 12, 1979, the final section of the Canada-Mexico Freeway, Interstate 5, was opened near Stockton, California, connecting the 2 countries through America. By June of '81, roughly 40,000 miles of interstate had been opened to traffic. In August 1986, the last 5-mile stretch of I-80 opened in Salt Lake City, completing the first transcontinental highway. 6 years later, in 1992, the entire interstate system, designated by the Act in 1956, was claimed complete by the government at 41,000 miles long. While it was originally meant to take 16 years, it took almost 40, and with an initial cost of $25 billion, it went up to about $115 billion in cost. While it's hard to figure an accurate number for how many use the highway in a given day, it's a lot. What it does accurately do is assist in transport of goods. The United States has some of the best methods of moving goods domestically thanks to the interstate highway. Our manufacturing and consumer access to goods depends on our highway system. Paved with roughly 143 billion tons of asphalt and concrete, the United States interstate is a use of travel that provides a journey that can be scenic and provide memorable moments in our lives. With all its use, it hasn't been part of this country without social controversy.